Welcome to Module 2. This module is called A New Paradigm, Changing the Way We Think About Our Fertility. So in Module 1, Natalia just kind of went over where you guys are at right now, most likely, just how Western medicine kind of treats infertility, and just gave you guys a little introduction into Eastern medicine. And before we get deeper into Eastern medicine and learning key concepts of Eastern medicine and how to fix your fertility using Eastern medicine, first we kind of need to change the way we think a little bit. So a paradigm is a chronic way of thinking. So in the West, we typically have a way of thinking that's different than in the East. So we kind of have to change our worldview and the way we look at our bodies a little bit and our connection to nature to really get the most out of learning Eastern medicine. So in Western medicine, we often target a specific organ, hormone, or procedure to force a pregnancy. But in Eastern medicine, we seek to correct underlying imbalances, strengthen the body's natural fertility, and create a healthier environment for conception. It also takes into account the health of the mother postpartum and has excellent confinement protocols to nourish the mother that will impact the health of the mother for the rest of her life. So in Eastern medicine, the focus is more on long-term wellness, emotional health, and prevention of future reproductive challenges. It's not just about achieving a pregnancy. The focus is on becoming the body that naturally gets pregnant easily, as opposed to forcing a pregnancy on a body that is not ready to handle it. So it recognizes the body as a process rather than a set thing. So in Western medicine, if you get diagnosed with infertility, it's kind of like, it's a set thing, and you just get put on this path of care that's just going one direction. Whereas in Eastern medicine, you're seen more as a process. So if you have infertility today, that's okay because you're a process. So as a process, you have the capacity to change, adapt, and improve. So what we do in Eastern medicine is we help facilitate that change and strengthen the body's natural adaptive capacities and improve the fertility in a very natural and holistic way. Another way to look at this difference between Eastern medicine and Western medicine is the pursuit of what is wrong versus creating an environment where nothing wrong can thrive. So I like to think of this as like defense and offense, like thinking about sports. So in Western medicine, they kind of just play defense against chronic disease, against infertility. It treats it in a very defensive way. Whereas in Eastern medicine, we're more playing offense. So we're not worried so much about the infertility diagnosis. We know what needs to be done to be very fertile, and we just focus on that. So we're not fighting against the infertility. We're just creating a very healthy body where fertility is just the natural result. And another way to look at this is germ theory versus terrain theory. So if the fish is sick, as you can see here in this dirty bowl, do we keep treating the fish or do we change the bowl? So in Western medicine, it's like if this fish has infertility and they're living in this environment, they don't really look at the environment. They just keep trying to treat the infertility to force the fish to get pregnant, and they're not really taking regard for its environment and how that might be affecting the fish and hindering its fertility. So in Eastern medicine, we're going to look at every aspect of a person's being. So we're going to take that fish because we see how it's affecting its fertility, and we're going to put it into a new bowl where it can process. It can process and change and adapt to a healthier environment, and therefore have a healthier outcome, have healthier fertility. So this is the difference between the way Western medicine and Eastern medicine kind of thinks about fertility and how it thinks about all chronic disease, really. So Eastern medicine doesn't treat a disease, it treats the person who has the disease. Eastern medicine views fertility as a reflection of the body's overall balance and vitality. Rather than focusing solely on reproductive organs, it addresses the health of the entire system holistically. Holistic means seeing the human being as a complete ecosystem, mind, body, spirit, and environment, where every part is interconnected and healing one area supports the whole. And this leads into fractal theory. So really getting into thinking differently, a new paradigm here. In Eastern medicine, the human body is viewed as a microcosm of the macrocosm. So there's kind of this idea of oneness throughout nature and how the human being is connected to that as well. So there's no separation between us and nature and us and the cosmos. And there's this fractalized pattern that you can find throughout the entire cosmos, throughout all of nature, and in our bodies as well. And that's why when healing our bodies, we kind of observe the way that nature works and the way that nature is organized. So I remember when I first started to study Eastern medicine, one of the first days of class, Dr. Ramawi, who was a medical doctor that taught at our school, on the very first day he spoke about fractal theory, and I just remember how mind-blowing it was, and how powerful, and how that was a great way to kind of introduce Eastern medicine thinking to a Western mind. So that's what we're going to do with you all. So what is fractal theory? Fractal theory is the study of complex structures that display self-similarity across different scales, where parts of the whole resemble the whole itself, regardless of the level of magnification. These structures can be found in mathematics, nature, art, and biological systems. A fractal is typically infinitely complex in detail, self-similar at various levels of magnification, and often generated by recursive or iterative processes. So you see this image here of the galaxy, and how when you zoom out far into space, everything is kind of in a spiral here. You see this spiral pattern. So just take note of that as we go on to these other images. And you can see that same pattern, it's actually the exact same geometry. This is called the Fibonacci sequence, or the golden ratio. It's found throughout all of nature. So it's this perfect pattern within creation. This is what fractal theory is. So whether you zoom out into the galaxy or zoom far into like a flower or a snail shell or something like that, you'll find this golden ratio all over the cosmos. And it's also in the human being, and you can see how the pattern of our lungs here is very similar to this pattern and this geometry of this tree here. And even going deeper into that, our lungs and trees and plants are actually one process, because we breathe off carbon dioxide, and plants and trees kind of breathe that in, and plants and trees give off oxygen, and we breathe that in, and we need that to survive. So there's no separation here. There's kind of that one process, and you can see also how similar the geometry and the patterning is between the lungs and the trees. And so it's just very interesting to think about our bodies and nature that way, and how we're connected and we actually look very similar. And here's a fingerprint and some wood grain here, and you can also see the similar pattern there. So there's this intrinsic connection between the human body and nature, and the whole cosmos. So here's more examples here. So this is a very zoomed in view of a leaf on a plant, and a very zoomed in view of a skin of a human. And you can see the very similar patterns there as well. And down here, this is a fungi that is starting to take place in the decomposing process of this wood. You can see the patterns and the geometry there that's naturally forming in that fungi. And then when you look over here, these are neurons in the human brain, and you can see the way they're patterned is very similar to this fungi. So just very interesting to notice and take note of the similarity between the human being and nature, and how there happens to be this similar mathematical geometric patterning across all of nature, and our human bodies are no exception to that. More examples here. So this is a river, and just look at how the river has naturally formed in the geography here, and how similar that pattern is to this lightning strike that just would have happened for a second, and also how similar that is to the vasculature in the human body here. So just very, very interesting. So see the self-similarity across different scales, and how the human body is a microcosm of the macrocosm. So this is how we just want to kind of change our way of thinking. Maybe you've heard of fractal theory before, but if not, I think this is a great way to get the Western mind to start to just kind of buy into these Eastern concepts before we get deeper into Eastern medicine. And you can see the human eye here, and this nice picture of the cosmos here. Just more self-similarity across different scales in the universe. So separation from nature or the flow of the universe is only a delusion created by our consciousness. In truth, we are inseparable from the whole. So this is the new paradigm. In Eastern medicine, the body is viewed as a microcosm of the macrocosm, like I have said, and like we're showing in these pictures. We have to start thinking circular instead of linear. In Western fertility treatments, the process is very linear, but nature is circular. There are no straight lines in nature, and we are part of nature. Therefore, treating the body in a linear model is flawed to begin with. So, like I've been saying, in Western thought, we kind of think very linear, but nature is very circular. When you go to the doctor and you first get your infertility diagnosis, you kind of just get put on what I call the fertility train, the train path of care, and it's just going one direction. So you get infertility, they tell you to keep trying for a few months, and if it still doesn't happen, then we'll do this test or that test, and if that doesn't work, then we'll move on to medicated cycles and IUI, and then IVF, and then maybe try IVF again, and then maybe try IVF again. And if that doesn't work, then maybe we'll go into an egg donor or an embryo adoption. So you just kind of get put on this train, and it's just moving one direction, and nobody's really circling back and respecting your body as a process and giving it a chance to change and adapt to have a different outcome. So that's the difference in thinking. That's the difference in the way we think about our bodies in Western thought to Eastern thought. And that's the way our bodies actually work, though. Like our hormones, they work circularly. And the female reproductive system has a 28-day cycle that goes with the moon cycle. So we're intricately connected to nature, and nature is a process, and it's a circular process that's constantly changing and adapting. So we are going to recognize your body as a process like nature, because it is part of nature, as we've shown through fractal theory. And when we recognize that, we can kind of facilitate a healthy adaptation, a healthy natural change to the way your body is processing, and we can facilitate healing of the infertility that way. So we're really recognizing your body as a garden or an ecosystem rather than like a machine. So the human body, it flourishes when the soil is rich, The water flows freely, the sun is warm but not scorching, and the seasons are respected, and you tend to this garden with awareness, balance, and care. So this is what we're going to teach you guys how to do in this course. And we're kind of just giving you a little introduction into the way Eastern medicine thinks. So this is a little introduction into the 5 elements. We have fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. So this is kind of the framework Eastern medicine uses to treat infertility and to treat any chronic condition. And every organ can be categorized into one of these elements. And all of these organs have a direct impact on each other and influence each other. And we're not just going to solely focus on the reproductive system. We're going to focus on all of the organs and help you identify imbalances in all of the organs, if there are any, because this is holistic thinking. So when you heal one part, it has a direct effect on the other parts and on the uterus and the reproductive system, on the fertility. So in Western medicine, they're typically just focused on the reproductive system and what could be going wrong in there. They're not really taking account for the other parts of your garden, for the other parts of your ecosystem that might have imbalances that are influencing the reproductive system in a more indirect way. And this is very common for us to have these. So we are part of nature, and by tending to our body as if it is a garden, we can create fertile soil to bring in new life and create balance. So that's what we're going to be teaching you all to do in the following modules. This was just a little introduction into Eastern medicine and to just change the way we think about our bodies, and kind of realizing how our bodies are part of nature and intricately connected to nature and function the way nature functions in a circular, cyclical type of way. And so that we can align with that natural circular rhythm of nature. So in the next module, Italia is going to be taking you deeper into Eastern medicine and identifying unhealthy patterns that you might have in these different systems of the body. And then in the last module, we'll teach you exactly how to fix those patterns and how to cultivate your body like a healthy, thriving garden, and how to cultivate dynamic fertility, natural fertility, as a result of creating a healthy garden, a healthy ecosystem in your body. So we look forward to teaching you in the next couple modules. Thank you for your time.